Okay, and I'm recording this so that I can upload the video. I'm not hearing anything, and I don't see a chat. So, okay. Wonderful, wonderful. That will help set the stage. Just as sort of a background, I don't have direct experience in long-term care, although my wife and I have her mother with us on home hospice right now. But I have been investigating facilities, long-term care facilities for my father, so I have a pretty good idea as to how they're structured, and we can go from there to talk about how those facilities are managed and operated. So when it comes to assignments, let's just go down here and look at the the first assignment for this week is to write a paper. All right, I'm going to give up. I need to put these on to see what I'm looking at. Your first assignment is to write a paper about either how a health facility is managed, specifically by interviewing someone working in them, or review these organizational models that are on pages 35 to 45 of the text, or alternatively, look at some of the learning objectives for the week, and they're listed here. Now, if you have an idea of something that would be more interesting to you in terms of looking at these questions, please let me know. I'm pretty flexible about how we handle these kinds of assignments. But the idea here is to really start investigating how these facilities are managed. And if you think about it, you've seen it in hospice, but if we talk about long-term care in general, there's a wide range of those kinds of facilities. Many of them are associated with rehab facilities. Many of them have memory care units, which is a nice euphemism for Alzheimer's units, obviously. So the way some of those things are managed is a little different.
I'm switching computers now.
The other thing is that these facilities, besides having all of the usual issues like HVAC and security and the many other factors that come into that, they also have kitchens that need to be managed. And so the structure of how these things are managed is going to be based on one of the models that is that actually has a facilities manager of some sort, as opposed to the small office model, which would be the facilities management would be the responsibility of the office manager. The other thing is that the difference, many of these things, at least a lot of the ones I've looked at, are facilities that are wholly owned by the organization, by the facility, by the company itself, as opposed to leased space. So then they have all the responsibility for buildings and grounds maintenance that in leased space would be the building owner's responsibility. But since these facilities generally are not leased space, but are owned, so they're going to have a broader remit of management, facilities management stuff associated with them. So I don't know if you've worked in a hospice. I don't know, is that local or is that elsewhere?
It was in Fort Collins. I worked at Clare
Okay,
Bridge for a while.
I can't hear you, so let me see if there's a way. No, I can't seem to find a way to turn your audio on from here. No, that won't do it. Okay. Oh, at Clare Bridge. Okay. Okay. We're having actually our hospice here for my mother-in-law is managed through Pathways. So you could talk to those folks since you've worked there, and actually see if you could talk to their, I'm impressed by people who can work in hospice. It just, it's one thing to work with someone who's close to you, like my mother-in-law, but to work in that kind of an environment is, to me, I'm not sure I could do it. Not as a career. It just would drive me crazy. But that's an aside. But yeah, I find that in general these guys are very caring. But if you could, it might be that you want to try and talk to their facilities manager and see if you can do an interview. The interview can be email or it can be over the phone. You don't have to run down there and visit them. Again, we're trying to be, I understand that you have to work and you have family and you have a lot of other things going on. So want to make this as easy as possible to get the work done. So do that. I suggest that, but it's up to you. Let me know which of these options you're going to choose. But I urge you to go ahead and get started on it because there's a lot of writing here. If you go back and look at the structure of the class, each week you're going to have an assignment 2, which is basically for you to quickly go through the chapters of the text that are the required reading, which you'll find under readings and tools each week. And just write a short paragraph for each of the chapters about something in there that you didn't know. And I don't, it doesn't have to be a book review, just something that stood out to you that you're learning from those chapters. And the book itself is obviously called the Facility Management Handbook, which means it's general as opposed to healthcare, though there's some references to healthcare throughout the book because management of those facilities is rather critical. But just go ahead and do that. And it doesn't have to be anything tremendous. I'm looking for maybe 100 words about each paragraph. And it shouldn't be I'm not interested. You don't have to sit there and really give me a review of the entire chapter. So it's something that stands out as you skim through it. This is a big book, and I understand there's a lot of reading. So I just urge you to quickly go through, pick out the things in it that you think are useful, because there's a lot of different headings throughout the book. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the ebook yet or not, but there's a lot of information in them. But there's also a lot of information that is not really relevant. Again, if we're going to focus on long-term care facilities as a focus, and I think that's an excellent idea because the whole issue of healthcare facility management is gigantic, and there are even academic programs in it that are available. I've done a bit of online searching for these things, and it's amazing to me how much is out there. It's a field that has come into its own. It used to be sort of okay, you're in charge of maintenance, so you're in charge of the facility. Well, now these things have great, excellent. I'm glad to hear that. Glad to see that. But now we realize that the facilities manager has to be well versed in a wide range of areas, or able to have on his staff people that can take care of those. If you look at a hospital, for instance, facilities management is an enormous issue because the facility itself is very complex, much more so than an apartment building. Yes, we have the usual plumbing. Yes, we have structural issues, and so you have to have some structural engineering expertise, HVAC expertise. But if you look at a hospital, then you have all the infrastructure that's unique to a hospital. And this is going to be the same in a long-term care facility. You'll have a system of oxygen lines to deliver oxygen to your patients, because many of them, yes, it takes so much time. Yeah, by the time you build one of these facilities, and you do have to go through and get a certificate of occupancy, which means you have to pass all of the state, and if you are dealing in Medicare, I believe you also have federal guidelines that you have to meet in order to get the CO. Yeah, and it takes years. I was watching down in Denver when St. Anthony's Hospital closed its facility at 84th and Federal. They moved it up to 120th and basically I-25. It was years in the construction, and it took a long time to get the approval to open that facility. Meanwhile, they had to keep the 84th and Federal facility running. So it's got to be. It's not only that; it's an expensive process. Yeah. Yeah, look at the VA. I agree with that one. Watching that whole VA process down in Denver over a decade was really an eye-opener. Yeah, it takes a while. They're complex facilities. Fortunately, long-term care facilities, although we still have to jump through hoops, are a bit less complicated. We don't have to have sterile operating suites. We don't have to have pharmacies, but we do have to have a kitchen. We have to have all of the other infrastructure. Then there's the IT infrastructure now with everything being electronic records and everything. So it really gets to be a complex a job. So so much of this book has to do with day-to-day operations. But when you are in a long-term care facility, depending on its size, the ones I have been looking at recently for my father on the East Coast have ranged in size from about 150 residents to 300 residents, and have ranged in services from rehab to long-term care to memory care. And of course, it's all divided up. The needs for long-term care are different from the needs for memory care, are different, definitely different from the needs for rehab, which is a short-term stay, but a lot of these places have them. Then you have your staffing issues that you have to worry about as well. Nurses, aides, CNAs, many of them still employ LPNs, though that group appears to be disappearing. Plus then there's the physical and occupational and speech therapists and all the other people that they have. I agree with that statement. My wife, as a home health PT, her agencies would have contract PT services with long-term care facilities. And we learned to have a great deal of distrust because of exactly that issue. That and the over-medication issue.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a major problem. That's one of the reasons that we refused to put my mother-in-law in a long-term care facility. We felt that it was a case of we'd have to spend just as much time with her there as we do at home. So yeah, I agree. It's difficult. We call it snowing them. Yeah, it is, as far as I'm concerned. But that's that's for maybe another course. So the facilities themselves are pretty complex. We have very you have to have backup systems. You can't lose power. One of the things we saw in the hurricanes in Florida was we had nursing home residents die because they lost power and there was no way to evacuate them. So, I mean, you have to have many redundant systems in order to avoid that. Those systems get to be very expensive. And, it's nice to say, well, just set up a, yes, it was gigantic. And the recent hurricanes down in Florida too, this last year. One of the things that I've heard people say is, well, we'll just, equip all these things with solar power. Well, again, cost, and it just doesn't necessarily deliver what you need, but you do need a system that can have at least enough backup power to keep the heat and lights on. And the oxygen flowing and all the other things that need to be done. So there's a lot to consider when we're looking at these facilities that are very similar to any medical facility. Medical facilities of a long-term care or a hospital. I'm going to exclude things like freestanding ERs and urgent care centers, which don't work 24 hours a day for the most part. There's only a few of those around. But a nursing home or a long-term care facility is a 24-hour a day, 365-day a year operation. We don't get holidays. We don't get snow days. I remember stories of major snowstorms in the Midwest where the hospital was sending out snowmobiles to get their nursing staff in. It was the only way they could get them in because the roads were all closed. So we just, we have to be aware that we have to be prepared for virtually any emergency, any reason that there's a problem with getting people in and taking care of our people. An emergency plan, that's part of a facilities management. What happens when there is major flooding and you need to evacuate 300 people from your facility? That's not an easy answer to give. And it also is not something you can throw your hands up and say, well, that's in the hands of God. We can't do anything about that. Well, it doesn't work, because our job is to take care of the people here on earth. So it really is something to consider, that's another major role that was sort of foisted off onto facilities management staff early on, and when we started seeing the need for this kind of management. So now almost all these facilities will have that. But that's what the assignments are for this week. Let's back up and look at the discussion. You've seen the discussions in this new blend ed model. You'll see that I've already posted a couple of things on it. It's a little hard to carry on. I can't expect you to reply to 2 other students simply because you're the only one. So the conversation will be between the 2 of us. So when you are looking at this, look at these 2 downloads. If you look at this one, managers getting involved from day one in strategy. That's an important thing that we've learned over the years in facilities management, is that the facilities manager needs to be involved in virtually any decisions that are made, because those decisions impact the facility. Are you going to add, for instance, you're in a hospital. I'll go back to hospitals because, of course, they're always expanding. If you're going to add some new facility, say you've decided that you need an imaging center at your hospital, something that that's again a different question as to the need for that. But you've decided that you want that. What are the considerations from structural? Because these machines are heavy, and if you have an MRI, they have these magnets. You have to have a shielded room. CTs involve X-rays. You need a shielded facility. What are the considerations? The electrical considerations. These things don't run on 120 60 cycle current. So what are the electrical requirements? Do we have the electrical service to provide it? These things are considerations where your facilities manager and his or her staff need to be involved in right from day one. Those kinds of, and a sufficient budget needs to be provided, not just to build it, but to maintain it. And when managers, or when senior management, executive management makes decisions to do something like expand a facility, what's it going to cost? Not just the upfront cost. I mean, we can get all the estimates we want. Those estimates may or may not have any meaning, as we know from the VA experience down in Denver. But a private organization has a little more ability to hold someone to a contract than the government seems to be willing to do. But that's because a private organization is not constrained to go with the lowest bidder. So not only the initial build, but also the cost of maintenance, the cost of operations. And they, so facilities managers need to not necessarily be economists, but to understand the economics of the things that they're trying to, that the executive management is trying to put in place. So this other article about HIPAA impacts on healthcare leases, there are some things there to look at. This discussion is something that I'd like you to take a look at. And again, I'll apologize for the poor quality of Mondays Tuesdays version. But, that won't happen again. I'm going to keep a microphone handy. But the thing is about managing these facilities is the manager needs to be not just a good manager of people, because you need to keep people around who understand your facility. When I was working in the pharmaceutical industry, obviously we had a big research facility, multifunctional. Our research labs were in one part of the building, and our administrative offices and our support offices were in another, but it was the same building. Let's see, do I just pick a department, or comes in to play as well? Yeah, I think that's the idea, is that you look at just basically tie it in back to your to the interview you set up for the assignment this week. It'd be my suggestion. See, this obviously, this question is obviously directed at someone who is working in a facility, and maybe I have no problems if you talk to whoever manages the building where you work in the Department of Transportation.
Okay.
If that works.
Yeah.
The object is, many of the issues are the same. Many of the basic issues are the same, of maintenance and repair and construction issues and cleaning and all the associated stuff that goes with that, overlaid with the special engineering issues that we have in a healthcare facility, which typically can be handled in a smaller facility like a nursing home or another long-term care facility, could be handled by an outside consultant. A lot of places will do that because you can't possibly, in a hospital where you've got 1,000 beds and 5,000 employees, you probably can have someone on staff who has the expertise. But even many of those will make use of consultants because the vast array of expertise you need is and specialty things. Like in a hospital, you have ORs. That's a very special issue, obviously, because it has to be an area that you can maintain sterility and stuff, and that's a special issue entirely.
Yeah.
Plus, your pharmacy has to have a place where you can do sterile compounding. So there's some special considerations there, but overall, the issues throughout the healthcare arena are going to be similar. Just there will be overlaid additional functionality on top of some of the others. So yeah, you can either try to couple this with your interview for assignment 1, or talk to the people where you work, whichever's easiest for you. I'm trying to. I understand about working and going to school, so I want you to do a good job here, but I also want you not to get stressed out. Okay.
Okay.
So you'll note that I have a couple of posts. I won't read through those now. You can do those on your own because it's a little after 9, and I thought we'd try to finish up about 9:15 because I know you need to go to work. So that's really, and of course there's an assessment. The assessment is so you can do that. I suggest you finish going through the chapters of the book first, and then I think you'll find it easy to do that. I have set up, let me just pull this up and be sure. Here. Come on, wake up. There we go. Yeah, I've set it up to where you can do 2 attempts at each of the exams, each of the assessments. You've been in my classes before, so you've probably heard this. I view assessments and quizzes as learning experiences, so I have no problem with doing it that way. So really, that's this week. let's just jump quickly ahead. Next week, there'll be some more stuff to do. What I will do is record a short introductory video for you to view on Tuesday, or whenever I get it posted. I might get it done on Monday and post it, but I'll let you know. I'll just do a short video to sort of set you off for the week. You can look at on Tuesday or Monday, whenever you get the opportunity, and then we'll meet again on Thursday morning. How's that work? Okay, good. Do you have any questions? Okay. You can send me an email anytime. I check emails several times a day, sometimes only once a day on weekends, but during the week I check my email fairly regularly. So I'll get back to you as quickly as I can if you have any questions. Also, as usual, if there is a problem with an assignment, submitting an assignment for any reason, email it to me.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing is that since this is a directed study, we have a directed study contract. I will scan and email this to you. I don't know if you have the ability to sign it and scan it. If not, sign it, take a photo of it, and send that to me.
Okay.
Okay? But I'll get this filled out and get it to you in the next day or two. And then we'll get this, because it needs to go, according to our rules, it needs to go into your file, that we have this directed study. I think you've probably seen these before. But we have these things. It's 2 pages. We'll get that, I'll get that out to you fairly quickly. Anything else that you want to say or ask? Okay, well, I'll cut this off. I've been recording it. I'll post the video in case you want to come back and look at it. It'll be down here in this Zoom Sessions Week 1 page. So you can take a look at it if you feel like you want to or need to catch up or confirm something that we talked about. Other than that, I'll talk to you next week. Okay. So have a good week. Have a good weekend.
Thanks,
Bye
you
now.
too.